Thank you for inviting me. It's a real honour to be able to kind of speak on behalf of our members down at Coventry.
Thank you.
I think it would help to kind of give a bit of background, if that's okay. So GMB have been trying to organise and support Amazon workers now for about 10 years, and mainly because of the conditions within those fulfilment centres. So there's a complete disregard for health and safety. There's an algorithm that decides what the targets are, and that changes from day to day. It pitches worker against worker. So, you know, if you're working with people that are much fitter than you are and can work much faster than you are, you could potentially find yourself on a disciplinary. One of our workers described it to me as being at the gym for an hour and then times that by 10, because they do a 10-hour shift, and you have to do the same performance at the start of the day that you do at the end of the day, and you never really know what your target is, so you're just kind of pushing on that. So it creates a real toxic environment within there, and so, you know, that's how we first got involved. They had an excessive amount of ambulances that were going to site. I think it was something like 143 ambulances over a 3-year period in comparison to 7 ambulances down the road at a Tesco fulfilment centre. So you can see the kind of differences, and a lot of those ambulances were going to site for things that were connected to that kind of environment. We never managed to get to a situation where we could get a recognition agreement or even a collective dispute because of the fear within those centres around organising themselves into a union. And, you know, there was a lot of kind of anti-trade union rhetoric and a lot of stories around what would happen if a union was to get recognition within those sites. That changed last year in August. And the reason it changed, I think, was a number of things that brought workers to the position where they felt they had no other choice but to take action. And the first of that would be the pandemic. So, as other union officials will probably be able to tell you, during the pandemic, we were all asked to talk to employers and look at what safety measures we could put in place to make sure that workers were either furloughed or they were able to go safely back into work, socially distancing, following all of the government guidelines. Amazon completely refused to speak to us, and instead they started to pack people into those fulfilment centres in the thousands. So they declared themselves as essential, even though a lot of the goods that were going out during that period were not essential. And, you know, our workers were frightened to go to work, and inevitably we had outbreaks, and some of our members ended up in serious conditions in hospital. So after coming through that, they were faced with the worst cost of living crisis in decades, and they're already on £10 an hour, so in my opinion a poverty pay for such a multi-billion pound company. So when they went through that, they thought their employer may well help them at this stage. They were ready for a pay review, and they were expecting that their employer would add a couple more pounds onto that £10 to enable them to just survive, because they were already using food banks, they were already having to pawn goods in able to keep their head above water, and then they were looking at food prices going up and energy prices going up. So as a result of that, what happened then was Amazon, they briefed out that they would be getting a 50p pay increase, and they briefed it out like it was a gift. And I think that was probably the worst thing that they could have done, because workers were really angry about that. Because what workers knew was that back in 2018, they'd been forced to give up shares that would have been worth a lot of money in order to have a pay rise that Amazon now claim was a massive pay rise. But actually, our workers are 13% worse off than they were in 2018. Just going to pop my glasses on so I can make sure I'm getting the facts and figures right.
Wonder what percentage was that? Could you say it again?
2018 was when they originally had shares taken away from them and a pay increase.
And so they're now down by how much? You mentioned
13%.
13%.
Yeah, 13%. Just check myself. It's definitely 13%. So they're worse off by 13%. That's a real, if I can put that in real terms, it's £60 a week, thereabouts. So you can imagine that's, you know, props towards the food bill for most of our workers on a 40-hour week. To add to this, during the pandemic, Amazon had been on the a hiring spree that was virtually unprecedented in human history. So by late 2020, they were employing 1,400 workers a day globally. And this was amid record demand for home delivery. I think we can all probably say that at some point we've ordered something during that pandemic to our homes. So this helped Amazon harvest at eye-watering riches. Their profits nearly tripled to 33 billion during 2019 and 2021 in their global operations. And to add insult to injury, Jeff Bezos, which is their founder, then brought a rather strangely shaped rocket and flew into space and back. And when he came back, the message he gave to workers and the public was to thank them for paying for that. And down at Coventry, like I say, our workers were pawning goods to keep their head above water, and now they were being offered pennies on top of the wage, the already poverty wage that they were on. And I think when you get to a stage where workers feel like they've got nothing to lose, that's when you see them looking to fight back, and that's what they did. So across the country we saw unofficial strike action, people walking out of those centres, people sitting in those centres. And because GMB had been a staple in the lives of Amazon workers for the last 10 years, it was us that they contacted for help. And when we spoke to them, we looked at what it was that they wanted, and they wanted a decent wage that they could live on, not survive but to live on. And we decided that £15 an hour would be what would go forward in the pay claim. And this was not beyond the realms, because in America they were paying $18 plus for Amazon workers, which meant it would have been thereabouts. So the pay claim went in. We wasn't listened to at all. There was no response. So we started a consultative ballot for industrial action. It was an online ballot, and that consultative ballot, we turned out 75% of our members, and 99% of that percentage voted in favour of strike action. And again, we wasn't surprised, but we had no response at all from Amazon. So at this stage, we have to go to the official strike ballot, which has to be done by post. And we have to use a third party in which to do that. And we didn't meet the 50% threshold. We missed it by 3 votes. Now, it was our feeling that, in other countries across Europe, had we have turned out the percentage that we did, which was lower than 50%, but almost there, that we would have been taking industrial action. And the industrial action was meant to be on Black Friday, as that was quite symbolic of the profits that Amazon were making. So we rerun the ballot for a second time, which we won, and we was able to take our first day of action on the 25th of January. And that was 2 months after Black Friday. And we wanted to, the workers wanted to strike on Black Friday because there was all sorts of things that came into that. One of them was that there was a surge of 50% in ambulance call-outs in the lead up to Black Friday, and this just kind of cemented what the workers were telling us on how hard they were pushed at these times.
Can I just ask something, Amanda?
Yeah.
Why are ambulances being called to the fulfilment centre? What sort of conditions are causing the ambulances to be called?
There's all sorts of things that they were called for. Breathing issues, heart attacks, miscarriages, things falling on people. There was a whole array of things, but everything could be mapped back to the toxic environment within there. So the pressure that people are put under, the injuries that they have.
You've clearly got stats comparing ambulance call-outs to the Amazon fulfilment centre and a Tesco fulfilment centre down the road. Can you let us have those?
Absolutely.
Because this is really very shocking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Please continue.
So, it's very important from that point of view, and then also from the point of view of the vast amount of profit that would have been made on Black Friday, but due to having to do a postal ballot, which you can see the difference between when we did the online ballot, we wasn't able to achieve that. And that's kind of, they've now today will be their 19th day of strike action, so that's continued down there, and it's continued to gain momentum, and we've just had to reballot for the next 6 months, which we've managed to do. We managed to achieve the threshold for that now.
And are negotiations ongoing?
No, there are no negotiations.
So no one's come to the negotiating table?
No.
Presumably that's what you're trying to get.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've made approaches directly, we've made approaches via ACAS, so that we can get around the table and talk pay with Amazon, but there is just, it's almost as if they refuse to accept we exist.
You're looking for an increase from the workers you're organising with from £10 an hour to £15 an hour. So that is a 50% increase, but against a background of an employer, in inverted commas, who has recently tripled their profits as a result of the pandemic.
Absolutely. They're now at £11 an hour actually, because they had the 50 pence that was imposed on them at the time when they decided to take the unofficial strike action, and since then they've been imposed another 50 pence in March of this year. But they haven't, done any negotiations at all. They haven't even spoken to their workers. In fact, they have what they call all-hands meetings, which is when everybody gets called to talk about issues within the centres, and they've been banned from talking about pay.
Point of order, Chair. I think you've made it very clear on previous occasions that this committee does not deal with individual cases.
Absolutely.
It takes evidence on general points of principle. And I appreciate this is covered by parliamentary privilege, and therefore witnesses are free to say whatever they wish to say about anybody and are protected by that. But clearly we've heard a great deal about a specific case and one side of a specific case.
Really?
Now, it seems to me it would be appropriate, certainly in this example, to ensure that whoever is on the other side of that gets the opportunity to submit their evidence.
David, you can rest assured that I will be writing to Amazon to get their response to this, because I find what Amanda, who's a senior organiser at the GMB union, is telling us in evidence deeply shocking and immoral, and I'm appalled it's going on in the United Kingdom. So I shall, and many of us round this table, I'm sure, are customers of Amazon, so I shall certainly be writing to get their comments on Amanda's evidence. So thank you for raising the point. I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We would welcome that
order as well. I would like to concur with what David has said. We've heard essentially one side of a case being given not in front of the media but by Parliament under parliamentary privilege, where you can say what you like without fear of legal redress. And I don't think that to do so without the other party present able to give their other side, or able to come to the committee and take the same advantage of parliamentary privilege, is a reasonable thing to do.
Well, I'm afraid I hear what you're saying as a point of order, but I respectfully disagree with you. This is not a court of law. We're simply hearing evidence. We're hearing evidence from somebody of their experience as a senior organiser at the union. As I say, Conservative members can rest assured that I will write to Amazon, putting all of these points to them to check their accuracy and to have their comments upon them. Now, I'd quite like to get on with the witness evidence. I hope that satisfies people.
Could you confirm that you'll invite them back to give them the same opportunity?
I would be delighted to have Amazon in front of this committee, so yes, I'll certainly add that to the end of the letter, and I know our clerks are taking a note of my undertaking to write to Amazon and to ask Amazon to come and tell us if this is true, with all due respect to you, Amanda, and what their comment is upon it and how they justify it. Lord Dalacchio, next question.
Sorry, Chair, further point of order. Sure. Perhaps just request that perhaps you can make it clear that this does not set a precedent, because I know on a number of occasions we've had requests to discuss matters in detail in this way, and we have refused those requests on the basis that it is not an appropriate way for this committee to proceed.
These are discussions that we will take offline to a private meeting, David, which we'll be having later this afternoon. But I'm satisfied that it's appropriate for us to proceed at this stage. Lord Dalacchio.
Thank you. My question is directed at Amanda. The GMB represents the interest of people who work in private sector and public sector.
Yes.
Is it easier to organise strikes in public sector than it is in private sector?
I wouldn't say it was easier to arrange strikes in either areas, in all honesty. I would say each provides its own set of issues. In public sector, we have higher densities of trade union membership. That's probably from years of organising, and obviously we have the national...
Right. I'm really sorry, Amanda. I'm going to have to suspend because we're having a division in the House of Commons, but we should come back in about 10 or 15 minutes, so I'll suspend for now. Order.